Square Enix is hosting a big event this upcoming week and has teased a few things that will happen at this event, and I also have a few predictions of what I think we might see. And finally, what do we say on this channel? Where there is smoke, there is fire. And a huge smoke cloud just went up in the sky with a new Nintendo Switch Pro discovery that I guess could be a coincidence, but in the business of video games, I don't believe in coincidences. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to like the video. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So when it comes to third-party companies, one of the companies I actually sort of respect the most, I guess you would say, has to be Square-Enix, because I think they do a good job of balancing classic games with new games. Now, whether or not you like these new games, obviously something like the Avengers wasn't a big hit like they thought they was going to be. That's sort of up to your interpretation, but when it comes to respecting their back catalog of stuff, they do a great job. I mean, you got Final Fantasy games that never came out on a Nintendo platform on the Nintendo Switch. You had the Trials of Mana remake. You of course have all these different collections that they do, and of course they do new games as well, such as Final Fantasy VII Remake and Bravely Default 2. Now Square Enix is actually hosting an event this week that I guess is going to be sort of like a Nintendo Direct event. Now this event will be happening on March 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern time, so 4 days from the filming of this video. I guess depending on when you're watching this video, maybe the event has already happened. But basically during this event, they're promising things like updates on current games and more importantly, new game announcements. Now, the aforementioned Avengers game is of course going to be there. They probably spent so much money to get that license, and to see the game just really fall off a cliff after the first month definitely has to be a bit disheartening. There's been an update to the game as well that has a lot of players pissed off. I saw Dreamcast Guy did a video on that game. I never got around to playing that game. I really have no intention on playing Avengers, but maybe they could sort of salvage it during this thing. Now, there's also going to be mobile games as well, like Just Cause Mobile. Like, I like the Just Cause games, but I'm not playing a Just Cause mobile game. But there are some interesting things that they did allude to, and then I do have one prediction that's going to be at this event. So Tomb Raider is celebrating its 25th anniversary, and they said that there's going to be more announcements about Tomb Raider stuff. Now, as far as I know, unless I completely missed it, I haven't seen anything for Tomb Raider's 25th anniversary announcement to sort of celebrate the games and celebrate the lineage of Lara Croft and all that. Like, she was a pretty impactful woman in the world of video games, definitely right up there with characters like Samus. So I'll be interested to see what they're doing with this. There was, of course, the rumor that I think we talked about it late last year, that a collection of Tomb Raider games was coming out potentially for the Nintendo Switch as well. I definitely think we're going to see a collection of Tomb Raider games, more than likely for the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, with things like 4K visuals, HDR, 60 frames per second, all that sort of stuff. But I definitely think there could be a Nintendo Switch version of these games as well, because I think it would make sense. You know, Lara Croft has not been on a Nintendo platform in quite a while, since I guess the Wii, you would say. So I would be interested to see what they're going to do with Tomb Raider's 25th celebration, because I mean, it's a big franchise. Tomb Raider used to kick ass, and then Uncharted came along and everyone forgot about Tomb Raider, which I honestly feel is a big shame. Something else they alluded to is that there's going to be Taito stuff at this event. Taito in 2021. Like, I don't know, that was just kind of completely out of left field, because I feel like there's not a lot of people out there that are like, you know what, we really need some new Taito games in 2021. Like, yes, during the late 80s they were one of the biggest arcade companies out there, and they did make a lot of classic games. There have been Taito compilations that have come out as well throughout the years, but it was just weird to see Taito like be talked about in this press release for this event that's coming up on March 18th, because I feel like there's not a lot of people that are wondering about Taito, but I do respect it, because once again, you have a company like Konami who doesn't even make video games anymore, and they own Hudson Soft, and I would love to see new Hudson Soft stuff. So Taito is evidently going to be at this event, maybe another compilation for modern consoles, or maybe some new games based on classic Taito IPs. Now, as far as my big prediction is concerned for this event, I think this isn't really a prediction. I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion, but I definitely think that you're going to see Final Fantasy VII Remake be announced for things like the Xbox Series X and of course the PC, because when it came out on the PlayStation 4, of course the first chapter of the Final Fantasy VII Remake was a one-year exclusive, and that came out in when, kiddies? It came out in March of 2020. So it's been a year. I definitely think this game will be making the jump to other platforms. Not really expecting a Nintendo Switch version or anything like that. I'm sure they'll talk about those mobile games that they showed off in the Final Fantasy universe as well. Some of those games looked kind of interesting. I didn't like the Battle Royale one, but the other Final Fantasy VII game that was sort of of like set in the same universe. I didn't really follow it all that much, but I thought that one looked pretty cool, and that could potentially come to consoles as well. We of course saw Final Fantasy 15 mobile end up coming to consoles, so I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting event. I do have my expectations kind of low for this event because I feel like a lot of companies, you know, we just as gamers tend to hype up these events because we want the latest game announcements, we want the latest and greatest information, and sometimes it can be a little bit disappointing. But I mean, at the end of the day, Taito's gonna be there, and it's freaking Taito in 2021, baby. And finally, I'm sure somebody timestamped this in the comments section down below because you didn't care about my Square-Enix opinions, even though you should, and it hurts my feelings that you don't care. But Nintendo Switch Pro stuff, yes, I know. It's something we've been talking about a lot on this channel. There's been a lot of things going around. There's been so many more things that I could have potentially talked about with the Nintendo Switch Pro, but really, I'm becoming very picky and choosy with this because I feel like there's some sort of misinformation flying around out there. And of course, you have the fact that there's still a large segment of people that don't believe any sort of Nintendo Switch revision is coming. And I mean, that's cool if you feel that way, but I definitely think we are going to see a Switch Pro just because where there's smoke, there's fire. But today, like I said, a very interesting smoke cloud was discovered with this, and it's something that I definitely want to talk about because it could just be a coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences in the video game industry. So this information is once again coming to us from DocTrey81, someone we just talked about on this channel a few days ago. What it do, bruh? Talk of the town, Nintendo, Doc Trey still holding it down. Very catchy theme song, long time homie of the channel. But I do have to question, Doc Trey, where did you get your doctor degree from? Because I feel like this is a Dr. Mario situation. I feel like there could be a little cap going on here. I need to see your doctorate, just DM it to me or something like that. But he made a very interesting discovery, and we're gonna talk about the discovery and then why it's just could be a big coincidence or it might be something more. So Doc Trey was poking around on the internet like he does instead of doing surgery on patients, and he actually found a press release that was done back in January of 2021 that was done by Samsung, and basically they talk about their upcoming philosophies and their upcoming plans and strategies for the upcoming year and beyond. And in this it said the following: moving forward, we intend to aggressively position Samsung OLED technology across promising market sectors that will take us beyond smartphones, including the laptop and notebook, IT, automotive, and gaming console segments. Now that's something, I don't know, oddly specific to say, don't you think? You've already talked about smartphones, you've already talked about things like computers and laptops, and then you go on to say gaming consoles as its own entity, as its own sort of thing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any new gaming consoles coming out anytime soon that we've been rumored or anything like that. Obviously, we just got the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, and they don't use screens. So what would be something that would use an OLED screen, potentially from Samsung, that we've actually talked about on this channel before? Let's go back to the Nintendo Switch Pro report from Bloomberg that happened a few weeks ago. What did Bloomberg say in their report? That it was a 7-inch Samsung OLED screen. So now Samsung just happened to talk about this back in January, that they're expanding into the gaming console segment. They just happened to be getting into the gaming console segment, and then this report came out that just happened to say, oh, it's a 7-inch Samsung OLED screen. Like, come on. Come on, I get it. It's sometimes hard to believe that Nintendo would do something like this. And I know a lot of people are sick and tired about this, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And this to me is an ember that is just going out of control because of the fact that it perfectly aligns with what the Bloomberg report said. And like, I just don't believe in coincidences within the video game industry because it's such a big business and things of that nature. If the Bloomberg report had said just a generic OLED screen, okay, you know what? I would give you a little bit of leeway with that, but since they said specifically a 7-inch Samsung OLED screen, and Samsung has said earlier this year that they are expanding into gaming consoles, and the only gaming console that is currently on the market that has a built-in screen to it is the Nintendo Switch, and there's been so much stuff about a Nintendo Switch Pro. Like, dude, even the biggest skeptic at this point in time, I believe, has to think something is happening, has to think some sort of refresh, some sort of revision is happening, because it's just way too coincidental for me. And of course, you know, we're not going to get into the 4K stuff and all that nature because that's a different topic and that's something that we've already discussed on the channel. But this is more focusing just on the portable aspect of the Nintendo Switch, the only console on the market that is still being made that has a screen built into it. So it seems like this Samsung 7-inch OLED screen is pretty much, I mean, you gotta say it's almost confirmed at this point in time. Obviously, you can't confirm it until Nintendo comes out and shows it and says, hey, look, 7-inch OLED, 4K, Switch Pro. Even though they're not gonna call it the Switch Pro, they're probably gonna call it something just so ridiculously stupid. But yes, Samsung has said that they're getting into the gaming sector. Allegedly, this Nintendo Switch Pro is going to have a Samsung 7-inch OLED screen. And I'm sure it's just one big coincidence, but even if you think it is a coincidence, I'm definitely going to disagree with you. Alright, so that is what's going on in the world of video games. Be sure to let me know what you think of everything in the comments section down below. Do you plan on checking out this Square Enix event? What sort of things would you like to see at it? And of course, this Samsung discovery. Is this one big coincidence and, you know, I'm just looking too deep into it? Or do you sort of see where I'm going with this and just think, well, that's a little bit too coincidental for my liking? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If this is your first time on the channel, like I said, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, check out other videos on the channel. I'll have a link to Doc Trey's initial video that he made on this in the description box down below. Like I said on the last Doc Trey related video, go show him some love. He's always making interesting discoveries that I enjoy talking about on the channel. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.